In the independent trade city of Houseman, many merchants sell their goods without the interference of greedy nobles. However, not a single day passes when a noble does not try to flex their backgrounds in the face of common folks. To deal with this problem, the independent city has created its own Knights Guard, and amongst them is a valiant knight named Cecily Campbell, a third-generation knight from the prestigious Campbell household. One day on her patrol, Cecily encounters an old rampaging veteran knight with a longsword hell-bent on causing chaos in the middle of the street. As an estimated night guard of the city, Cecily steps out from the shadows and challenges the knight to duel. However, Cecily lacks that necessary strength to stop the knight, but as a knight she must protect the houseman, and with this determination, Cecily initiates the attack, but the veteran knight counters it with ease. As the battle progresses, the veteran knight forces Cecily to shift from offense to defense. Meanwhile, Cecily realizes that her body lacks the stamina to delay the battle any longer. As the pressure rises, Cecily leaps in for an attack, but unfortunately, the veteran knight parries her attack at a precise angle and breaks her sword in half. As he is about to deliver the decisive strike, a young mysterious man named Luke Ainsworth unsheathes his katana and slices through the veteran long sword like butter. As the situation settles, Luke mocks Cecily for her sorry state and leaves together with his live-in assistant Lisa. On their way back, Lisa compliments the bravery shown by Cecily despite being a female knight. Meanwhile, Luke responds to Lisa and explains that Cecily's recklessness and weakness will only harm others and herself. In the end, Luke refuses to attend his scheduled meeting due to his mood swings. Back in the market, Cecily heads to the Knights Guard's contracted blacksmith for her broken sword. At the shop, the blacksmith keenly inspects the sword and concludes that repairing the sword is out of his league. He then calmly states that the only logical course of action would be to melt the sword and mold it again. Although Cecily understands the best course of action, she is unable to bid farewell to their family heirloom. After a long discussion, Cecily decides to hold on to her sword and locate a capable blacksmith who can repair her sword. Before leaving the shop, Cecily asks the blacksmith about Luke's address. After a long walk out of town, Cecily finally discovers Luke's isolated estate on the outskirts of the forest. Upon entering his house, Cecily formally introduces herself and requests Luke to create her an unbreakable katana. However, Luke reveals that he took a vow to never create a katana for commission, and he intends to honor that pledge. As they continue talking, an emergency bell rings throughout the city, notifying everyone about a sudden monster sighting. At the Ainsworth estate, Luke, Lisa, and Cecily quickly rush over to town only to discover that the monster has slain multiple knights. In that instant, Cecily uses a blade of a fallen comrade to attack the monster, but once again her attacks are futile against a mighty creature. After witnessing her futile struggle, Luke decides to intervene and slay the monster. Meanwhile, a mysterious entity puts his backup plan into action by instigating a demon contract. Suddenly, a powerful demon appears on the battlefield, forcing Luke and Lisa to reveal their ability. At that moment, Lisa builds a magic furnace, allowing Luke to forge a new katana on the spot. Thanks to Cecily's diversion, Luke is able to forge a beautiful fiery katana. He then moves to the front lines and engages the demon in battle. Luke's flaming katana and keen observation gives him the best chance to parry and dodge all of the monster's attack. However, all that changes when the monster decides to transform itself. Despite the monster's upgraded stats, Luke remains calm and avoids all of the monster's attacks. Simultaneously, he searches for the critical moment of attack, and once he witnesses a glimpse of opportunity, Luke slices through all of the monster's limbs. Meanwhile, on the sidelines, Lisa explains that most blacksmiths are unaware of the craft and the delicate process required to forge a perfect katana. It is mainly because a katana must be folded and hammered multiple times, while a normal blade does not require this much time. In simpler terms, katana requires weeks of delicate processing, while blacksmiths are able to forge hundreds of swords in the same time span, but those swords lack durability, unlike the katana. As the situation settles, Luke's newly forged katana turns to dust, but he tacitly shifts the conversation. At that moment, Cecily's chest plate falls off, leading Luke to a nosebleed. The following morning, Cecily arrives at the Ainsworth estate and relays her discussion with the Knights Guard, revealing that yesterday's bandits must have an accomplice helping them because mere thieves lack the ability to make a demon contract. That's when Lisa intervenes in their conversation and reminds Luke about his important meeting, but stubborn Luke refuses to attend it once again. At the meeting, many diplomats representing different cities gather at the Houseman estate to discuss pressing matters, but every diplomat is pissed due to Luke skipping their gathering. As the meeting commences, one of the officials raises the concern regarding Houseman's recent demon attacks. He proposes to switch the location of their gathering due to security issues. However, his concerns are lost in between multiple conversations. After briefing on recent events, the diplomats discuss the return of the demons that started the Valbenal War 4 years ago, and their main concerns are Luke's scared sword, All of the diplomats share their views on the power of the sacred sword and its importance in the upcoming battles, but the thing that concerns them the most is whether one scared sword would be enough to deal with the demons. Back at the Ainsworth estate, Cecily practically begs Luke to forge an unbreakable katana for her. After a lot of inciting, Luke agrees to forge a new katana for Cecily, which will be her partner while protecting the city. As they continue talking, Luke mentions all the expenses Cecily needs to cover in order to buy a katana from him. However, Cecily is flat broke. Disappointed, she returns to Knight's Guard, where her superiors introduce Cecily to Arya. The head of the Knight's Guard briefs Cecily about her new secret mission. She must protect a demon's sword at all costs, but things get confusing when Arya reveals that she is the demon's sword. After formal introductions, Cecily takes Arya to Ainsworth Estate to introduce her to Luke and Lisa. Upon reaching the house, Arya formally introduces herself and chants a unique incantation to transform herself into a sword. Turns out, Arya is a special demon sword with the ability to manipulate the wind. However, what confuses Luke more is the mysterious material used to forge the special demon sword. Back at the Knight's Guard, the leader of the Knights explains their future plans relating to the demon contracts and the upcoming war. Amidst the conversation, one of the Knights questions the leader about his decision regarding the protection of the area, the demon sword. In response, the leader states that Cecily, being the leader of the Campbell family, is the best person for the job. Meanwhile, Cecily, Arya, and Lisa visit a restaurant together to enjoy a pleasant meal. Amidst the meal, Cecily asks Lisa about her relationship and whether Luke, the cheapskate, takes Lisa out for a meal once in a while. However, Lisa tacitly shifts the conversation towards Arya. A while later, Cecily shifts her attention towards Lisa and asks her about their plans for next week's festival. In response, Lisa reveals that they are going to visit the festival for the sole purpose of viewing different sword vendors because Luke is currently searching for a sword that can slay God. Right after this statement, Lisa realizes the huge blunder she just made, but now all of her efforts to shift the conversation are in vain because Cecily realizes that in Arya's incantation she mentioned that her purpose is to slay God. On their way to the blacksmith shop, Arya reveals that she was born on the battlefield 40 to 50 years ago, and the first thing she did was to slay all the greedy men after her powers. As Arya continues her story, both Lisa and Cecily internally pity her life's purpose. Nonetheless, Cecily cheers up Arya by inviting her to stay in the city. In the evening, the three of them reach the blacksmith's shop to pick up Cecily's new sword. In the meantime, one of the knights enters the shop and insults Cecily for ordering a newbie sword. He then further insults Cecily by stating that a sword is a weapon to kill, while on the other hand, Cecily believes that a sword is meant to protect the weak. At that moment, Cecily and the others hear about the demons which have infected many men in the city, but the leader of the knights orders Cecily to stay on the sidelines. In the end, all of the sane knights, including Cecily, are forced to kill many infected civilians and knights. The following day, Arya and Cecily spend some quality time together. Amidst the conversation, Arya confesses that she wants Cecily to be her master because she would not use Arya's blade and powers to mercilessly kill people. Instead, she would use it to protect Arya herself and the common folk of town. In response, Cecily reveals that she is a rookie knight who hesitates to kill her enemies. Despite all of Cecily's weaknesses, she proposes to befriend Arya and remain by her side forever. Afterwards, while walking, Cecily overhears the leader of the knights and one of the diplomats scheming a plot to capture the mysterious man responsible for the demon attacks. At that moment, the leader of the knight discovers Cecily's presence, but instead of reprimanding Cecily, he hands her a special mission to display the demon sword at the festival in order to lure out the mysterious man. Conflicted by the special mission, Cecily heads to the Ainsworth estate in order to gain Luke's perspective on the matter. At his house, Cecily asks Luke about a hypothetical situation concerning her friend's life. In response, Luke advises Cecily to never endanger her friends, and if the situation is inevitable, she should protect her friend with everything. In the evening, Cecily shares her conflicted feelings with Arya, explaining that she lacks the authority to deny or change the assigned task. However, Cecily confesses that Arya's well-being is all that matters to her. After a brief discussion, Arya consoles Cecily and reveals that she has complete trust in Cecily's judgment. The next day, Luke and Lisa head into town to scout out the new collections of swords, but after visiting a few stores, Luke realizes that the new collections of swords are useless. Meanwhile, Lisa suggests using Arya to fight the upcoming battles. Despite her thoughtful suggestions, Luke explains to Lisa that he would need 100 swords like Arya to fight with Valbino. A while later, Luke and Lisa head to Cecily's live display only to discover that she is bad-mouthing. Disappointed by her behavior, Luke leaves without wasting any words of compassion. At that moment, Arya and Cecily are summoned to the stage. where Arya transforms into her demon sword form to demonstrate the true might of the Knights Guard. As Cecily finishes up her performance, a fiery demon attacks the city. On the other hand, all of the other knights evacuate the city while the leader of knights gathers a special platoon to hold the demon in place. In spite of that, the demon escapes from the knights' clutches and lays waste to the city. Fortunately, Luke and Lisa arrive at the scene in the nick of time and create a plan to defeat the demon. However, in order for his plan to work, Luke needs Lisa to deliver the decisive blow. As the battle progresses, Luke forges a new katana and creates the required opening for Lisa. In that instant, Lisa uses Arya to launch the final attack to defeat the demon. As the next dawn breaks, Lisa rises to another beautiful day. After dressing up, she heads to the well to fill up their water supplies. Luckily, the village nun is also at the well and uses her blessings to purify the water. While at the well, many of the village elders urge Lisa to marry their son, but she laughs everything off. Her next stop is at Mrs. Anna's house, where she hands a basket full of veggies to Lisa. In exchange, she orders a pair of garden hose for her new farm. On her way back, Lisa encounters another farmer who gives her a few radishes. After returning to the house, Lisa prepares Luke's favorite breakfast to cheer him up. At the breakfast table, Luke tells Lisa that they already have a pair of garden hose. That's when Lisa suggests that Luke should forge a new katana for Cecily. Initially, Luke refuses the idea, but after a lot of bickering, Lisa convinces him to forge a katana for Cecily. The following morning, Cecily and Arya visit the Ainsworth estate to learn more about the demon contracts. Suddenly, the atmosphere changes as Luke reveals that Valbin will force many people to sacrifice their souls to the demons in exchange for supernatural powers in the war fought 4 years ago. On the other hand, Cecily intervenes in the midst of the conversation to ask about the Valbinals' true motives behind the war. In response, Luke explains that every person is born with a death song unique to them, which is engraved on their hearts, and if a person wants to fulfill a demon contract, he must recite his own death sound. This feat can be accomplished in many ways, for instance, drugging the person and slicing their chest apart. Some people are also forced to recite their own death song using a mirror, which is the ultimate sacrifice a human being can offer. In the end, Luke urges Cecily to find the mysterious man behind all the recent demon attacks and kill him. The next day, Cecily scolds Luke for not providing the necessary lifestyle for Lisa. She then warns Luke that he would lose Lisa if things stayed the same. At the market, Arya and Cecily help Lisa pick out a bunch of new dresses. Meanwhile, Lisa tells Cecily that she enjoys working at the shop, and in return, she does not desire anything. However, Cecily assures her that Luke wants to do something meaningful for Lisa, but he lacks the necessary intelligence to do so. In the evening, Luke and Lisa head back to the Ainsworth estate. Amidst their walk, Lisa desperately tries to initiate a conversation, but stubborn Luke refuses to budge an inch. A while later, Lisa finds the courage to ask Luke's thoughts on her new outfit, and in that instance, Luke calmly walks closer to Lisa to give her a gift he picked up in the market. The following day, Cecily and Arya are attacked by a mysterious group led by Doris, hell-bent on claiming Arya, the demon's sword, for themselves. After a long goose chase, the group surrounds Cecily and Arya, forcing them to fight. However, Cecily refuses to put Arya in harm's way and tells her to stay on the sidelines. In the meantime, the group begins their attack on Cecily, but since 3 vs 1 is hardly a fair fight, the group decides to let Doris handle Cecily. Right after, the intense battle commences. Cecily uses her sword to counter all of Doris's attack, but the tides of battle shift against her as Cecily receives a flesh wound. At that moment, Arya intervenes and forces Cecily to use her power by stating that they are partners for life. Just then, Cecily displays Arya's true might, displaying warning and potential consequences of battle. On the other hand, Doris remains unfazed after seeing Arya's display of power. In response, uses earth magic and reveals that she also wields a demon sword. The atmosphere between the two gets tense and the battle begins. Doris uses her demon sword's power to the fullest by creating tremors and long-range attacks, but on the other hand, Cecily is still holding back her power since she lacks the determination to harm fellow humans. As the battle progresses, Doris makes use of many cheap tricks to throw Cecily off balance, and in that instance, Cecily realizes that she shouldn't underestimate Doris. At that moment, Cecily unleashes the full power of Arya to defeat Doris for good. However, her troubles have just begun, since the other two guards possessing the demon sword of Scarlet and the demon sword of Assassin step into the battle. Initially, Cecily manages to stand her ground, but soon she tastes defeat due to the combined power of the 3 demon swords. Meanwhile, at the Ainsworth estate, the Princess of the Empire, Charlotte, meets with Luke and orders him to accompany her to the capital. However, stubborn Luke refuses to listen to any word of the bratty princess. Charlotte becomes enraged with anger because everyone has always complied with her requests. Frustrated by his response, Charlotte attacks Luke using her demon sword of black flames, but Luke's swordplay is far superior compared to a mere child, so he slashes through all of the demon sword's attacks and defeats the princess. In that instance, Luke learns about Cecily and Aria's situation. He then instantly rushes over to Cecily's side to aid her in battle. Upon reaching the town, Luke and Lisa find Cecily on the brink of collapse while Aria is possessed by the 3 royal guards. At that moment, Luke forges a new katana and unleashes a deadly attack that defeats the 3 royal guards in one strike. A while later, the mayor of Houseman intervenes and puts an end to the meaningless battle. In his office, Charlotte reveals that her mother was a commoner and one day the emperor took a liking to her. A while later, she was born, but due to her mother's common status, she was never accepted by the nobility. As they continue talking, Charlotte attempts to buy Aria for a fair price. However, Cecily lashes out in anger, stating that Aria is more than a mere object. In the end, Luke refuses to accompany the princess to the Empire, and the mayor forbids the princess from buying the demon sword. Before leaving, the mayor requests Charlotte to provide proof of her royalty. In response, she gives him a unique dagger with the initial E. According to her, this dagger is only forged for the royal family and was personally given to her mother by the emperor. As time passes by, Charlotte and the 3 royal guards decide to stay at the Campbell household. As the 6 of them reach the Campbell house, they are welcomed by Theo Atkins, the head maid of the Campbell family, but in reality she acts as the boss of the house. Inside, Theo forces Charlotte and the 3 royal guards to wear maid uniforms since she will not allow any freeloaders of the Campbell family. After a lot of bickering, Charlotte proposes that she would agree to work as a maid, but only if Cecily would do her share of work. In the end, she deviously forces Cecily to wear the maid uniform and work alongside them. Meanwhile, on the streets, Luke and Lisa run an errand around the city collecting scrap metal. That's when Luke stumbles upon the location of the previous fight. He then keenly observes the damage ensued in the city. Luke slowly gets lost in thought, wondering why he intervenes in Cecily's business day after day even when he has his personal problems to figure out. At that moment, Cecily runs into Luke while doing an errand. Embarrassed by her attire, Cecily drops all of her apples. Meanwhile, Luke compliments on the maid uniform, but due to his compassionate words, Cecily feels more embarrassed and punches his lights out. After returning to the Campbell house, Cecily attempts to complete various chores around the house with Charlotte and the others, but things get messy as Cecily's clumsiness makes everything worse. On the other hand, Cecily is surprised to witness the impressive and efficient work done by Charlotte. Upon questioning, Charlotte reveals that her royal guards taught her various skills like cooking and cleaning. As Cecily and the others complete their chores, Theo draws a lovely warm bath for them. In the bath, Charlotte and the others compliment Cecily on her huge talents. In the midst of their conversation, Charlotte reveals that her mother's dying wish was to become a noble woman, however, not even the emperor visited her mother's deathbed. Even so, Charlotte refuses to badmouth the emperor because of her mother's pure love. All Charlotte wants is to be recognized by the emperor as her daughter, and in doing so, her mother would be recognized as a noble woman. The next morning, Cecily requests Aria to practice swordplay with her since she needs to master the immense power Aria holds. In response, Aria asks to view the other demon swords confiscated from the 3 royal guards and Princess Charlotte. At the Knight's Guard, Aria takes a deep look at the demon sword of Earth, Assassin, and Scarlet, but for unknown reasons they lack the power to take human form. She then talks to the demon sword of Black Flames and asks about the secret behind their existence. However, the demon sword of Black Flames gives Aria a vague response, stating that time will reveal everything to her. As the day ends, Cecily returns to the Campbell estate and spends some quality time with the royal guards. Meanwhile, Charlotte is conflicted between her own happiness and her mother's dying wish. In a confused state, Charlotte bursts out in tears and asks Mrs. Campbell for direction. In the end, Mrs. Campbell explains that every mother wants her child to be happy more than anything else. The following day, the mayor receives a confirmation letter from the emperor, stating that Charlotte and her so-called royal guards are bandits who have stolen various demon swords. The emperor then requests the mayor of Houseman to deliver the stolen swords to the capital. Although the mayor and the leader of the Night Guard side with Charlotte and the others, they lack the authority and the power to withhold the emperor's requests. After a lot of consideration, the mayor decides to hand over all the demon swords along with Charlotte and the other girls to the emperor, but his decision triggers Cecily's anger to an extreme extent. She argues with the mayor regarding his merciless decision. On the other hand, the leader of the Knights intervenes in the escalating situation to calm Cecily. He then explains that the matter at hand is far more delicate than anything they have ever encountered, and they are unable to take it lightly because their relationship with the Empire is on shaky terms. At the end, the leader of the Night calms Cecily down by saying that she will understand the situation later in life. Despite their explanations, Cecily is determined to save her friends. She then bravely states that her friends will be under her wing. Later that day, Cecily and the others return to the Campbell house, and at the dinner table, Charlotte refuses to touch her food. Meanwhile, the other girls attempt to cheer her, but all of their efforts are in vain. Charlotte then leaves the dinner table in tears, cursing her own life. The next morning, the mayor summons Cecily and the others to reveal that the Empire's army is standing at the gates of Houseman, demanding the return of the demon swords and the girls. In the end, even Cecily's pleas are unnoticed because the mayor would never initiate a war with the Empire and risk the safety of his people. As the situation grows more tense, the mayor reveals his plan, stating that he will return the confiscated demon swords to the Empire. However, he will inform them that Charlotte and the three girls have long fled the city. Meanwhile, he reveals that the neighboring states have agreed to take in Charlotte and her guards, but in exchange, she must betray the Empire and reveal all of their secrets. After hearing the mayor's proposals, Cecily forces Charlotte to accept the state's offer, but she refuses to betray the Empire, her mother's nation. A while later, the three royal guards decide to take initiative without Charlotte's involvement. The three royal guards plan to steal Arya and force Luke to accompany them to the Empire, but Cecily is the only obstacle in their way. After a brief confrontation, the intense battle between the four of them begins. The three guards initiate the attack with their demon swords with the intent of killing Cecily. On the other hand, Cecily displays great resolve and strength to defeat the three royal guards. She then convinces Charlotte to leave Houseman and start a new life with her family. The next morning before leaving Houseman, Charlotte reveals that a man named Siegfried gave them the three demon swords and told them about Arya, the demon sword of wind. The following morning, Cecily enjoys a pleasant breakfast with her mother and Arya because of her day off. Amidst the conversation, Mrs. Campbell scolds Cecily for not acting like a man. She then asks her about her relationship status, a question which makes Cecily blush as she is reminded of Luke. Meanwhile, Arya intervenes in their conversation and starts revealing Luke's handsome traits. At that moment, Mrs. Campbell tells Cecily to wear a peasant dress from her wardrobe. Back in the streets, Cecily meets Elsa at the blacksmith's shop, who is desperately trying to fix her dagger. After formal introductions, the blacksmith asks Cecily to accompany young Elsa to Luke's place. The two then begin their journey to the Ainsworth estate, and upon reaching, Luke keenly observes the dagger and its material. In the end, he concludes that the damage is irreparable. However, Lisa still insists on attempting some additional repairs that will improve the dagger's condition. Meanwhile, Luke asks Cecily to accompany him somewhere. On their way, Cecily trips over 10 times because of her nervous state, while on the other hand, Luke notices her state and assures her that he won't bite. A while later, Luke and Cecily sit by the riverbed, where Luke reveals his most deepest fear regarding Lisa. He confesses to Cecily that Lisa has always done nice things for her, but he could never return the favor, and he is unaware of Lisa's true feelings regarding his assistance. In response, Cecily assures her that Lisa loves staying by his side. She then asks Luke about his sudden worry, but he states that he is always worried about Lisa, as protecting her is his reason for living. A while later, Luke takes Cecily to his childhood friend Lisa Oakwood's grave. He reveals that they were really close, and one day they stupidly decided to visit the caves at the edge of the forest, where the two of them met Valvanil. In that instance, Valvanil killed Lisa Oakwood and his father, who came to rescue them while he stood there like a coward. In the depth of night, Luke is lost in grief over his beloved Lisa Oakwood, and in that instance, an insane old man with the demon sword of lightning shows up at the estate and attacks them. All of the old man's attacks miss their target due to Elsa, his demon sword. That's when he realizes his own weakness and chooses to escape. In the morning, the diplomats of different states attend a special meeting to discuss the recent attack on the blacksmith. The diplomats conclude that Luke was attacked because he is responsible for forging the sacred sword. During the conversation, the mayor of Houseman reveals that the sacred sword trapping Valvanil is running out of energy, and the only way to stop him is by forging another scared sword. He then reveals that Valvanil was the one of engraved unique death songs on the hearts of humanity, and by reciting it, humans began signing demon contracts. On the other hand, if Valvanil were to reawaken, he would eradicate mankind. As the diplomats discuss their situation, one of the diplomats displays a katana, stating that others can also forge a similar sword. In that instance, Siegfried leaves the meeting and goes to his carriage. He then reveals that the katana displayed in the meeting was on par with a demon sword, but he is unable to seal away Valvanil. Meanwhile, back at the Ainsworth estate, Luke explains the first mayor of Houseman taught the common folk to use prayer contracts in their daily lives. However, the mayor was unaware of the fact that the prayer contracts are in reality demon contracts that don't require human flesh as their sacrifice. He then tells Cecily about the sacred sword he must forge. However, Luke has yet to forge a perfect sword. Angered by the situation, Luke questions his own hatred and technique, stating that he is a disgrace to his father's teachings. In a state of frustration, Luke and Lisa head to the workshop and spend the entire morning forging a new blade. Later that night, the old man attacks the Ainsworth estate once again to take vengeance against Valbenil, but this time he faces Cecily and Arya. As the battle progresses, the old man's health worsens and soon after he draws his last breath. As the matter is settled, Siegfried arrives at the scene, revealing that all demon swords were made only to slay the god Valbenil. He then states that Arya will kill Lisa in the near future because Valbenil's blood courses through her veins. In reality, Luke made a demon contract the day his friend Lisa Oakwood died, and the current Lisa is the result of his contract. Suddenly, Luke arrives to fight with Siegfried, but he refuses and runs away. At that moment, Luke testifies that everything Siegfried told was the truth. The following morning, Luke, Lisa, Cecily, and Arya pray for the deceased old man and his demon sword Elsa. Just then, Lisa excitedly asks Cecily and Arya to join them for breakfast. However, Cecily refuses her invitation in a concerning tone. Before going to work, Arya tells Cecily that she knew about Lisa from the get-go, but that shouldn't change Cecily's views about her because Arya is a demon as well. After hearing her words, Cecily regrets her actions and decides to apologize to Lisa once she is off duty. While at work, the Night Guard welcomes Siegfried, the general of the Empire's army, for the diplomats' meeting. The entire Knights Guard have prepared a lavish escort for the general, but Cecily instantly recognizes him as he is the mysterious man behind the demon attacks. She then leaps in to assassinate Siegfried, but the other knights hold her down. That's when Luke arrives and calms Cecily down because she lacks the necessary evidence to prove her accusation. Afterwards, Siegfried unexpectedly requests the knight to let Cecily join the meeting. During the meeting, the diplomats release their anger out on Luke because his scared sword is incomplete. They then remind him about the demon Lisa and that she was allowed to live with Luke because he promised to deliver the sacred sword. In the meantime, Luke forbids Cecily to release her anger and leave the room. Confused, she heads to Luke's house where she apologizes to Lisa and asks her about his feelings. In the end, Cecily discovers that Lisa only wants to protect Luke and make him happy. After hearing her story, Cecily rushes in and interrupts the diplomat's conversation. She then reveals that Lisa Oakwood was the one who made a demon contract before dying in order to protect Luke even after her own death. She then advises Luke to open his eyes because he has already created the sacred sword. To prove her claims, she welcomes Siegfried to cut the sacred sword in half. However, on contact, his own katana breaks apart. At the end of the meeting, Siegfried shows his true colors and begins his attack on Houseman. As the meeting ends, Luke meets with Lisa and confesses his feelings towards her. As the conversation continues, Luke tells Lisa that he regrets naming her after Lisa Oakwood because of his decision. Lisa always felt like Oakwood's shadow, but in his heart, he wants Lisa to live her life to the fullest, even if it's not together. However, Lisa assures Luke that she wants to be with Luke for the rest of her life. At that moment, they are attacked by multiple demons launching their attack across the city. Meanwhile, Luke kills a large number of demons with the help of Cecily and Arya. As the situation grows tense, Luke and Cecily part ways. In a state of panic, Arya transforms into her sword form to help Cecily fight with the demons and joins the leader of the knights in battle against a giant demon. On the other hand, the bridge under Luke and Lisa is destroyed by a mysterious tornado, forcing the two of them to separate. With no choice left, Lisa tells him to wait on the other side of the bridge. However, Luke leaves her behind and goes to fight with Siegfried. The intense battle between Luke, Sacred Blacksmith, and Siegfried, the emissary of darkness, begins. Luke initiates the attack. However, all of his efforts are in vain as Siegfried parries each of his strikes. As the battle continues, Siegfried tips the table in his favor since the demon sword of darkness is able to erode any steel. After a long battle, Luke loses his sword and falls to the ground. At that moment, Cecily arrives just in time to save Luke from the wrath of Siegfried. She then distracts Siegfried while Luke and Lisa forge the perfect katana for Cecily, providing her with a weapon to slay Siegfried. Right after the battle commences, Siegfried confidently attacks Cecily with the demon sword of darkness. However, Cecily parries the attack and slices through his demon sword, giving her the opportunity to land the final blow, but Siegfried survives the attack and flees the scene. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to the channel and stay tuned for more quality uploads.